Hello everybody, welcome back to Fanblade. Well, these things are coming together nicely. There's one major problem. The necks aren't attached. Let's do something about that. Gonna start by finding something the right height to prop up the headstock so that the neck's just sitting perfectly flat on the body. Then take some string and tape a bit on there, run it all the way down the centre line, of the body, tape it on there, and then it's just a matter of getting everything so that it lines up perfectly, then pencils at the ready to draw in where the neck pocket's going to go. These are designed so that the 12th fret, or in this case the 12th fret marker, should be directly in line with the top of the horn. Little bit of fiddling to get everything into position to figure out exactly where it's going to go, but it's not that hard. Somebody years ago did actually suggest that instead of string I would use a laser sight. Probably a good idea. I don't have one, otherwise I'd use it. For now, string will have to do, and just a lot of care and very close attention to detail in getting these in the right place, because I don't want to wind up with them there by accident. That would suck. Alright, that's all marked out. There's a couple of interesting things about the geometry of these neck pockets. When you have a standard fender style body, the neck pocket inevitably is square. You have an edge here. When you need to tilt the neck back, it's fine. You can put a shim in there and the entire thing rotates back on an axis that's about there. Possibly back a bit further depending on the shape. But I can't do that. If I put a shim in here, the entire neck wants to rotate across this axis and it all winds up going very twisty. The secret to the geometry of these is that when you want it to angle back, you got to take more off this side. So what happens is that you wind up with a neck pocket that sort of starts there and ends up way down here on a silly angle. I probably won't go that deep either, that's just for illustration purposes. These are the bridges I'm using. They're from All Parts. They're nothing spectacular. There's nothing special about them. There's no micro adjustment. There's no string through function. It's just your good all-purpose economy bridge. Let's pull one out of its packaging. Okay, 10 points to All Parts for packing a bridge so securely you almost have to destroy it to get it out of the packaging. The pickups as well need to go in there. I haven't done any more to them. Sometime probably later today I'm going to need to clean them up because obviously I want to cut a pickup cavity, and that's going to require knowing exactly how big they are, and they're not quite sanded down to their final dimensions yet. So, but that is a couple of steps away. And those couple of steps are this step and that step. Here is how we are going to do this. Ordinarily, I would come in with some chisels and just start carving. I don't like using routers. It's very easy to make a mistake which is going to ruin the workpiece and very likely ruin your hand, which will, in all honesty, probably ruin your afternoon. Ordinarily, I would just start carving away with some good sharp chisels, but I have done a test carve on some of this walnut and a bit of scrap, and it's real tough. It's going to blunt these chisels. I would probably have to resharpen them 3-4 times to get through both bases. Not really looking forward to that. So I will be resharpening this one because this is the one that I'm going to use to nibble away at the end, but for cutting down here I'm just going to use a saw. And of course, once I've got through the walnut, carving the kauri is an absolute piece of cake in comparison. So I'm probably going to start just by scoring a nice clean line right in the top right where we want it, possibly just inside, because then I can make as much mess as I want in here, knowing that there's going to be a crisp, clean line on the outside where it's visible. Of course, doing everything inside the lines at this point, and then I'll take everybody's favourite tool, which is a piece of sandpaper, double-sided, taped to a bit of wood, and very carefully finesse and sand out everything until it's just exactly the right fit and the neck is going on exactly where we want it. Alright, we are in, and it's holding the body with nothing but friction. This is going to be a very tight fit. It's not quite in straight. Yeah, it won't quite go in straight yet. Still a bit of work to do, and obviously we need to get the depth, but I'm happy to report that it looks like the centre line, if I pick up the centre line of the neck. Oop, hang on. Centre line of the neck. Is that? Oh, we are 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters too far that way. Right. Okay, I know what I have to do. I've got to take a little bit off this edge here, and maybe a tiny little bit out of this corner, and that's just going to make everything the right size, and it's going to shift it that way just enough. Yep, we are looking good to be on track for looking good. Right, that neck is on damn near perfect. There's nothing holding it in except friction, and we can pick up the body with it. It is a nice tight fit, and the angle that it's on is absolutely spot on as well, because if we run a straight edge up the board and we hit the side of the saddle, then we're running into it, but we can go through the slot in the saddle and we don't move it. That's absolutely perfect. That is precisely where it needs to be. Yeah, that's a great result. So, now to do the next one, exactly the same. Right. Do you really need me to show you this one as well? Or would you rather that I moved on and did something with those pickups? Yep, thought so. We'll skip ahead. And here we go. Not much to say really, I'm just going to tape up the leads so that they're nicely and safely out of the way, because the last thing I need to do is accidentally nick one with the sander right on that edge and cut the wire, and then it's game over basically. Just sand them up, clean them up, make them look nice, find out what the final dimensions are going to be so that I can mark out the bodies and cut the cavities. I like the fact that they're shallow. I'm not going to have to cut very much out of the bodies. Should be fairly straightforward. Alright, so here is where we are at. They are starting to look like bass guitars. This is kind of what we're aiming for. I've taken stock of what else we need to do, and there's actually not that much. With the completion of the pickup cavities, it's really just drilling a few holes for the electronics, maybe a wire through there and one to the bridge. Like all of the major woodwork is done. There are, of course, this is all recycled timber, and there are nail holes. There's a big ugly nail holes and a couple of little dents. I suspect that may have been a little chip of wood that landed on the table. And there, as I was carving all of this out, you get a tiny little chunk of hard walnut lands there. Shift the base on top of it, and next thing you know, you've got dents in the back. So I've got to steam those out, then fill the nail holes. I'm just going to use the the 5-minute epoxy. That's fine. It's just it'll set clear. It'll plug the hole. No mess, no fuss. And of course, where these joins are along this edge, just to fill those up. Okay, so that was something I was particularly worried about, was drilling the holes in there. I wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally cut through any of the leads, because there's no coming back once you've done that. Afterwards I went to test things with the multimeter, and my multimeter's dead. Couldn't get a connection. Got really worried. Turns out they're not connecting on anything, so this old thing is done for, and I've been to the shop and bought a new one. 4.7, 4.64, 4.65, 4.68. Okay. Cool. So, the pickups are still good. All the holes are drilled. Everything else is pretty much ready to go. I'm ready to start sanding, the final sanding. These are already taken to 120. I'm going to give them 120 again, just to take off all the sort of pencil marks and clean up some of the ugliness that's been necessary. Then at 180, and then I will hand sand them to 240. So that should bring them up nicely. That's all you need for when you're finishing things. When you put the finish on, that's going to raise some fibres up, and that's when you hit it with the 400. And then you proceed up the grits from there as you apply different layers. Sawdust on my camera. Right. Okay. It is time to finish. Finally. I have taken the liberty of getting a brand new microfiber cloth, because these are good for sucking up any last trace of sawdust that may happen to be on these bodies. It's a good idea to use a fresh cloth, because I have this one that's been hanging about for probably a bit far too long, so I think we'll upgrade. Let's take all the lingering sanding dust off, because that can cause issues with superglue. If you ever mixed superglue and baking soda together, you know it sets instantly. And a pool of sawdust set instantly with superglue looks a bit unsightly. So, clean all these off. These are sanded to 240 by hand, and they are... walnut's going to be interesting. The only walnut that I've ever finished like this before has been the headstocks. And, that needs a few more coats. But they're about to get them. Okay. Now, yes, standard rules apply. Gloves, mask. Locate the mask. Mask has been located. Fan will be on. Yeah, let's do this. And in the blink of an eye, 48 hours has gone past and about 30 coats have gone on, both front and back, the necks. The pickups are looking lovely. I'm so happy with the way these have turned out. I just hope they actually sound half good. We're so close to finding out. I can smell it. It stinks. These are ready for their final sand and polish. Literally, if I were to breeze through this, then I could be playing these things tonight. And I kind of want to, but I know I have to go a little bit slow and just take things careful, because this process takes time. And these are going to be too good to rush and accidentally burn through. You know, you want to get it right. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of trouble getting it right, though, because all of the hardware stores in my city are all sold out of 600 grit. So I can't sand 400, 600, 800,000. What I'm going to have to do is go in real light with the 400, and then real hard with the 800, and that'll get me to about where I would have been if I'd had some 600 in the middle there. Not my preferred process, but I believe it'll work. It'll just take a little bit longer and I have to be a bit more careful, but I think we'll get through it. Well, that's one body, beautifully sanded, polished. I haven't polished the back yet. I'm going to do that in a second. But yeah, so that's how they look. I'm just really, really happy with that result. That's great. This took me nearly an hour. I've got another 4 hours of sanding and polishing ahead of me, but I'm not going to subject you to that. I'm going to leave this video here, and in the next, which will be the last video, I'm going to put them all together and then I'm going to play them for you. I'm amazed at that. Absolutely amazed. So yes, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I will see you very, very shortly.